Welcome, everyone. Welcome to our very last episode of Think and Grow Rich Mastermind. And we're going to be studying how to outwit the 6 ghosts of fear. Excellent chapter. The whole book's excellent. I guess we've been talking about this. But anyways, welcome my co-hosts here, Karin and Walter, Karin Gatrinig and Walter Perdigal, which I always got to work on saying that for some reason. Anyways, good to see everyone. And again, any initial thoughts on this particular chapter? Anybody want to start with something before I start telling everyone what Napoleon Hill said?
Well, we have to say the typical. This is a great chapter. We always say that, except for the one. But this is really a great chapter.
Yeah,
absolutely, because I think we all have this topic about fear in any ways. It's interesting for everyone.
Really what holds us back from living the lives that we want to live, right?
Absolutely.
And he does an excellent job of not only pointing out those fears, but also explaining what it is and giving some ideas of how to overcome it, things like that. And well, why don't we get into seeing what Napoleon Hill said? I can see. Look at that. I can see. Fantastic. All right. So this, again, final chapter. And like we've just already said, I think it's a fantastic chapter. So anyway, he starts off by saying, take an inventory of yourself. Now, before I read too much more, that's an important thing, I think. It's especially if you've been following along with us this entire time, it's a good idea to really take some time and really take a good look at, where you are and where you're going. And I think, again, this chapter could very well help you get to whatever next place it is that you want to go in life, whatever dreams you have. So anyways, again, he says, take inventory of yourself as you read this closing chapter and find out how many of the ghosts are standing in your way. Before you can put any portion of this philosophy into successful use, your mind must be prepared to receive it. The preparation is not difficult. It begins with study, analysis, and understanding of 3 enemies, which you shall have to clear out. Now, those 3 enemies are indecision, doubt, and fear. Right. So he goes on, he says the 6th sense, which we had a chapter on that we talked about, and it's basically your intuition. So he says the 6th sense will never function while these 3 negative or any of them remain in your mind. The members of this unholy trio are closely related. Where one is found, the other 2 are close at hand. And again, think about that: indecision, doubt, and fear. Right. I often, when I work with clients, and I talk about worry, which is the same kind of concept as the indecision. So the other thing that what he says next here, and this part is important too, is indecision is the seedling of fear. Now I pointed out, I actually highlighted here that he used the word seedling, not seed. And a seedling is something that's already taken root. Like a seed is you put it in the ground and hopefully it's going to sprout. A seedling is already sprouted. It means it's already growing. It's already taken root inside of you. So indecision is already in there. It's already building. And it's up to you whether it's going to grow or whether you basically excavate it and create something else, right? So anyways, again, indecision is the seedling of fear. Remember this: as you read, indecision crystallizes into doubt. The 2 blend and become fear. And the blending process often is slow. This is the one reason why these 3 enemies are so dangerous. They germinate and grow without their presence being observed. Important stuff to think about. And it's you got to be really, really aware of what's going on in your mind all the time. I think this is, I think a lot of people go through life, they don't even realize that they are in fear. They're just going through life. They've been conditioned to believe certain things and it's normal, when it's not. We're not supposed to live like this. We're not supposed to be thinking like this. So anyways, he goes on to say the remainder of this chapter describes an end which must be attained before the philosophy as a whole can be put into practical use. It also analyzes a condition which has but lately reduced huge numbers of people to poverty. And it takes a truth which must be understood by all who accumulate riches, whether measured in terms of money or a state of mind of a far greater value than money. The purpose of this chapter is to turn the spotlight of attention upon the cause and the cure of the 6 basic fears. Now, before we can master an enemy, we must know its name, its habits, and its place of abode. As you read, analyze yourself carefully and determine which, if any, of the 6 common fears have attached themselves to you, which I think you're going to find probably all of them, right? So do not be deceived by the habits of these subtle enemies. Sometimes they remain hidden in the subconscious mind, where they are difficult to locate and still more difficult to determine. So it goes on here to name basically the 6 basic fears. And he says here, there are 6 basic fears with some combination of which every human suffers at one time or another. Most people are fortunate if they do not suffer from the entire 6. Named in order of their most common appearance, they are, number 1, the fear of poverty. Happens all the time, right? The fear of criticism. Again, big one, isn't it? The fear of ill health. I think a lot of people spend far too much time worrying about what their health is going to be. It's one thing if you're already sick and maybe now it's time to worry about it. But if you're not sick, what are you worried about health for? And yet people do. Like I was just at the grocery store earlier today, and it's amazing to me how many people are still walking around with masks on. Like that's a fear of ill health, isn't it? Like, and yet, there's people that have been vaccinated several times and things like that who still get COVID-19. So you're going to get it whether you're having fear over it or not. It's got more to do with attraction than I think anything else. But so anyways, the fear of ill health, and then the fear of loss of love of someone, being lonely or that kind of thing. The fear of old age. I think people worry about that. I kept waking up every once in a while and people remind me of my age, and I'm thinking I didn't even realize that I was getting old, but but apparently it's a fear, right?
It's the ultimate fear, right? That's the ultimate fear,
right? We got the fear of death is the 6th one. All other fears are of minor importance. They can be grounded under these 6 headings. The prevalence of these fears as a curse to the world runs in cycles. For almost 6 years, while the Depression was on, we floundered in the cycle of fear of poverty. During the World War, we were in the cycle of fear of death. Just following the war, we were in the cycle of fear of ill health as evidence of an epidemic of disease which spread itself all over the world. That sounds familiar, doesn't it? The thing about this was back in 1939. Okay? So,
everything old is new again.
Back then, if you think about it, back when this book was written, things were a lot worse than they are today. They had the Great Depression and many, many problems, but yet we came out of it, and we probably had the last, most successful century in our entire existence. And yet we're still complaining. Every time you turn the news on, it's somebody's at fault for something and somebody's to blame for something, and crazy stuff. Anyways. Your poverty. Okay, fears are, let's just read the last part here. Fears are nothing more than states of mind, right? And anybody want to comment on what we're just reading about here before I carry on? Anybody want to say?
Yeah, I think that all of it is fear. I mean, it's all different iterations of fear. I think that's the ultimate. You talk about polarities. Love is sort of on the one scale. It's kind of who we really are at the end of the day, and on the opposite is fear. And basically, I think our love is tied to our sort of conscious behavior when we're acting and being conscious of how we're acting. And subconsciously is tied to fear. It's all based on survival, keeping you where you're at, doing what's safe. All of those fears. Death is the ultimate fear. It's every single one of us has to deal with it in our lives and also in our own life. We have to come to grips that our life our physical life will end as well. But I think that death gives meaning to life. It really does. Just like everything else, everything is a form of relativity. Death, we know it's coming. It gives meaning. It gives value to our life, right? But living consciously is the key to all of it. I think all of these things are, fear of poverty and criticism and ill health, and It means you're ingrained, you're living subconsciously, you're just living in survival mode. Oh my God, what will happen if? What if this happens? What if that happens? All negative emotions.
Kind of a terrible place to be, isn't it?
It is. But unfortunately, that is our default if we don't consciously take the habits to change that, to reprogram our paradigm. We are an animal. That's the bottom line is we're an advanced primate. And like all animals, our base instinct is survival. And so everything is, what's the risk? What's the risk? Oh, I get fired. What, how am I going to survive? Oh, I got a sniffle. Oh my God, what if I get sick and die? Oh, it's just a natural state. But it doesn't mean you need to process it. It'll hit us. But after reading the book, it's you learn how important it is to be conscious of your thoughts and guard those inputs, because all these things are just inputs based on your past. All of these things get learned. Probably we saw our parents. Maybe you have a family member that's a hypochondriac or whatever. All those are learned responses. Sure. Nobody's naturally afraid of death or naturally afraid of ill health or naturally. It's all learned responses. But living consciously allows you to.
And we can unlearn them too, right?
And you can.
I'm just kind of curious. Are you just calling Karen and I animals or something? I think she just.
Yeah, I'm an animal too. We all are.
Aren't you offended by having Walter call you an animal?
We're human animals.
Yeah, animals just live in the here and now, and yeah, that's good. That's absolutely perfect. So that people live in fear, I think that's the focus first is on the negative. And that's a big portion why so many people live in fear. And the second one is, I think that so many people live in the fear is because they don't know anything different. They are so familiar with the state of fear and fear of poverty and fear of death and fear of illness, and that's what they talk about. So I spent the last days with so wonderful people, but the topic was the economy and the price and how bad everything is. And I thought, oh my God, it can't be. So just be happy that we are here. We are having a wonderful life. We can spend a few days in a hotel and have fun and have good food and something to drink and just focus on the good things in life. And I think so many people are gone away from this perspective, looking on the good things in life. They only focus on the negative things.
Right.
Yeah, I think we have, and that's true. And we have to really put our guard up because it's natural. It's not a good or bad thing. It's just put on your objective glasses, right? Put on our objective vision. Like you just said, there's a lot of amazing things that are great right now. I mean, we woke up, 150,000 people every day don't wake up. Yeah. They pass away. You have your family, you got your friends, you have your health. You live in an amazing country that lets you live out your dreams. There's so much, and we have our wits. We can actually communicate with each other. We can control our thoughts. All those things are amazing things. We get to experience this amazing life. But the default is, if you live subconsciously, you're going to live as part of your ego. You're going to live of your survival instinct. And unfortunately, that is the first, until we get in the habit of not focusing on those things, everything's going to be, what's the risk? What's the risk? What's the risk? How am I, that's just our natural, unfortunate, built-in survival mechanism,
That goes right into what, I got stuff highlighted, not what he exactly says next, but where I've got it highlighted, he says, the man can create nothing which he does not first conceive in the form of an impulse of thought. Following this statement comes another of this greater importance, namely man's thought impulses begin immediately to translate themselves into the physical equivalent, whether those thoughts are voluntary or involuntary. Thought impulses which are picked up through the ether by mere chance, thoughts which have been released by other minds, may determine one's financial, business, professional, or social destiny just as surely as the due to thought impulses which one creates by intent and design. So again, it's got to be very careful, right? Well, that's what everybody's saying. We're very careful what we're thinking about. And he goes on to say, nature has endowed man with absolute control over but one thing, and that is thought. The fact coupled with the additional fact that everything which man creates begins in the form of a thought leads one very near to the principle by which fear may be mastered. It is true that all thought has a tendency to clothe itself in the physical equivalent. And this is true beyond any reasonable room for doubt. It is equally true that thought impulses of fear and poverty cannot be translated into terms of courage and financial gain. Right? The people of America began to think of poverty following the Wall Street crash in 1929. Slowly but surely, the mass thought was crystallized into its physical equivalent, which was known as a depression. This had to happen. It is a conformity with the laws of nature. Right? So exactly what everybody's saying here, like you're going to create whatever it is that you're thinking about. If you have a fear of poverty, I think there's going on right now. Like, Karen was just out with friends for a few days and at the beauty farm, as she calls it. I like that. Beauty.
Like beauty farm.
You're growing beauty. Is that where you're born? Were you born there? Because it's a farm, like you grow beauties. Is that how it works?
Yeah.
I think Walter was born there. He was born.
Thank you.
Again, we keep focusing on, like you were saying, your friends there were constantly talking about what's wrong, like inflation and the economy slowing and things like that. Well, guess what? That's going to bring it into their lives, right? But we can, decide not to listen, or you be friendly and listen, but don't absorb it. Don't get into it. Don't accept what they're saying. It's going to happen in your world, right? Okay, so he gets in here. This next section I think is really quite good. It's actually the fear of poverty, and I think this is a big one. It's actually, I think he said, was number one, and this is definitely a big one. I think a lot of people suffer from this, maybe much more than is necessary. One of the things too, I think, we start talking about poverty is you got to realize that we live in a world of abundance. Like, even what Walter, hey, Wayne, I got you last time, right? Now I can't get you right.
You can call me Wayne, no problem.
Walter, only known you for 15 years, but hey, Wayne, shake it. Anyways, so maybe I am getting old. Maybe I should be anyway.
You are what you believe, Lee,
That's true. I'm young. I'm 39, right?
Exactly.
39 is a good perfect age.
mentally, you're an adolescent. Okay, let's just get rid of
about 14 or something. Anyhow, what was I talking about? The fear of poverty. Again, we live in a world of abundance. Like, there is no shortage of anything. The only limitations are the ones that are in our minds. Now, I know that sounds simple. It's not an easy thing necessarily to really grasp, but you can, and when you do, you really can build the life that you want, whatever it is you want. Like, if you're having financial difficulties, there is a solution.
Oh, a lot of people get rich in a downturn economy, right? It was when there's a downturn, stocks are low, bonds are high. You can definitely make money. I think all of that too is, if you see, and it's happening now, be very, very careful. And both Lee and I, in this, love Trump, hate Trump, but in the past 4 years, it's been very polarized, and both sides get caught up in the media and get led by the media. And so even now, regardless of which side you're on, everyone's saying, oh, economy's slowing, watch it. Right now, it's not. Okay, inflation was high, it's dropped. You know what I mean? No, but they don't focus on that. Oh, and interest rates are high, and we better watch. The recession's coming, recession's coming, recession's coming. If you hear that again and again and again, that's exactly what you believe, and it's a mob mentality almost that brings it into fruition, I think, a lot of times. But I mean, regardless, look, if you Warren Buffett always said, they asked him, how did you get, what's the secret to your riches? It's very simple. You do the opposite of what the group is doing. If everyone is selling, that's when you buy. When everyone's buying, that's when you sell. You don't go with the mob, because it's this mob sort of survival mentality that everyone just kind of goes along with. Be very, very vigilant. Live consciously. I mean, that's what we've always been saying. Just live consciously. Be very conscious of your thoughts. Don't just take memories and what you hear as the truth. It's not. We're free to be right now, choose who we are. At any point, you can be reborn, remake yourself at any point in time, as long as you believe it. So don't think your past is your future. That's how we get caught up in, you know, generation-wide poverty. It's not because you're born into your DNA. It's because it's learned. You see repetition, the same patterns, the same beliefs, and by default you follow them.
Beauty farms.
Yeah. And what was that? Say again, Lee?
Don't go buy a beauty farm.
Exactly. That's not a bad thing to believe.
That's what we might say here in this part of the world. That'd be kind of fun, I think.
Grow some
yeah, but if you see
massages every day and things like that, facials, and I don't know what else you get. What else you get done at a spa? I've never been to a spa. Have you been to a spa, Walter?
No. But if you could plant me in the ground and I come up beautiful, hey, I'll, you know.
There you go.
Bury me.
I tell you guys, it's more than beautiful. It's fantastic. And you know what? If you relax and enjoy life, clients show up and business is growing. It's fantastic. Just do the opposite, what everybody does. You know, everybody is in fear. And I said, okay, I have to take some days out of the rush and the stress and working, and I need a break. Yeah. And that was absolutely the perfect time. You know, everyone lives in fear. And I said, okay, I take a vacation for just 4 days, but it was amazing. Yeah. From the outcome. Just appreciation all day long and be grateful for what I have and live consciously. That's it.
Yeah, a 4-day spa retreat.
You know, the criticism one.
Let's get to the first one first, because
are we going through poverty? Are we going through poverty right now? Okay, no problem.
Hold that. Let me read what Napoleon Hill said about poverty.
Oh yeah, okay, go ahead. Okay,
don't get ahead of us. Don't start criticizing what we're doing. Jeez, he's already criticizing us. Like, wow.
Jeez, I'm afraid you're going to criticize me. Oh my God.
Fear of poverty. It says here, there can be no compromise between poverty and riches. The two roads that lead to poverty and riches travel in opposite directions. If you want riches, you must refuse to accept any circumstances that leads to poverty. The word riches is here used in the broadest sense, meaning financial, spiritual, mental, and material estates. The starting point of the path that leads to riches is desire. In chapter 1, you receive full instructions for the proper use of desire. In this chapter on fear, you have complete instructions on preparing your mind to make perfect use of desire. Here then, it's the place to give yourself a challenge which will definitely determine how much of this philosophy you can have absorbed. Here is the point at which you can turn profit and foretell accurately what the future holds in store for you. After reading this chapter, you are willing to accept poverty. You will as well make up your mind to receive poverty. This is one direction you cannot avoid. That's what we're talking about, right? It's whatever you're thinking about, you're going to bring into your world, into your life. If you demand riches, you determine that what form and how much will be required to satisfy you. You know the road that leads to riches. You have been given a roadmap which if followed, will keep you on that road. If you neglect to make the start or stop before you arrive, no one will be to blame but you. The responsibility is yours. No alibi will save you from accepting the responsibility if you now fail or refuse to demand riches of life, because the acceptance calls for but one thing. Incidentally, the only thing you can control is that of a state of mind. A state of mind is something that one assumes it cannot be purchased, it must be created. The last part here, I was going to skip a bunch of it. Part I have highlighted here says the fear of poverty is without doubt the most destructive of the 6 basic fears It has been placed at the head of the list because it is the most difficult to master. Considerable courage is required to state the truth about the origin of this fear, and still greater courage to accept the truth after it has been stated. Very good stuff. Anything you want to add to what Mr. Hill has said there? Anybody?
Yeah, I always jump in first. You go, Karen. I have a big mouth.
No, you can go first, Walter.
Go.
No problem.
Yeah, I'm just thinking, just like anything, right? It is your belief system. It's what's ingrained in your paradigm. It's what you've learned. Like we can consciously say, let's pretend I make 50,000 a year, let's just say, and you set a goal of 500,000, or let's say 10 million. You want to make $10 million. Instantly, the second you say, yes, I'm a multimillionaire, you'll feel negative. And that's negative because the way your ego works is it says it's your guiding mechanism. It's our built-in guiding system, right? So the second you say, I'm a multimillionaire, its job is to say, okay, $10 million, how much are you worth? Well, it goes to your paradigm. It says, well, I make 50,000 right now. That's how much you're worth. How much am I worth? 50,000. That's what I'm making right now. 10 million is way off from 50,000, and right away you get fear of fear of failure, fear of lack of knowledge, fear of whatever, right? Fear of being impoverished because you fail. How am I going to make 10 million? I haven't a clue how to make 10 million. I have to run a business. I don't know how to run a business. I'm not that smart. Look at the people that are multimillionaires. They're really smart. I'm not smart. All that inner dialogue, right? And that's just a job. Keep you safe. What are you going to be 10 million for? Just do 50,000. You're good at it. It's nice and safe. It's neutral. It's absolutely natural to do that. And unfortunately, the safe method, I think the most powerful statement you can say is, I don't know. Some people are afraid to say, I don't know. Oh, I'm stupid. I don't know. No, that's how you grow. Yeah. How do you grow? Of course, is by learning things new, right? You learn from mentors, from reading, from learning, from experiencing. Right?
So again, the fear of poverty is got a lot more to do with feeling is this, like if you're working at a job and you're going to lose your job, if you could be like a couple, and a lot of times you've got maybe a young woman who has been staying home raising a child. Well, there's a fear that if the husband were to leave, what do I do for money? There's lots of different things that you could be getting going on in your mind that's going to cause you to worry about stuff. And then again, watching the media, watching the news, like it doesn't matter, again, like what Walter was saying, it doesn't matter what side of the argument you're on. The reality is there's an argument and they all want you to be afraid. And that's the key, is they want you to be afraid of whatever's coming so that you're going to listen to them more. Yeah. And that's the whole thing.
Fall in line with whatever.
Fall in line with whatever
bubble you're in. Just stick with the path, right?
Right. And again, we got there in the U.S. There's an election coming up. I think you're seeing that. You're seeing the outcome is going to be maybe much different than what they might have thought a year ago. Mm-hmm. And that's because there's a lot of fear. Now, I think this grant, it's understandable. People are afraid, but the reality is you don't have to be. Things aren't as bad as what the media wants to tell you it is. Mm-hmm. Is inflation bad? Every time I go in the grocery store, everything I normally buy is more expensive. Like even stupid little things. It's like every time I look at it, look at that. It's like $1 more, $1 more, when it was only $2 to start with. So that's a 33% increase. Yeah. Or whatever it is, I don't know. It's something like that. But anyways, it doesn't sound like much. $1 doesn't sound like much, but at the end of the day, your grocery bill is so much higher. Mm-hmm. We were talking even at the round table yesterday about gas prices, and like in Canada, we're paying like well over $7 for a gallon of gas. Yeah, it's crazy. Like when you look at it from the U.S. side of things, like I just noticed it was like almost $1.60 a liter. So times is 4.3 liters. So $1.60, that's 40, and then 0.3. So you're probably at over $6.50 Canadian. Mm-hmm. And the Canadian dollar is only like 35 cents, it's like 65 cents or something at the moment. Right. So even if you just make it 30 cents at six, that's another $1.80. You're almost at $8 a gallon of gas.
Right.
This is ridiculous.
Yeah.
Right. It doesn't have to happen either. Like, but again, there's some reason, there's some people out there that want to keep us afraid all the time. And
Yeah.
how they keep you in control. They keep you focusing on what they want you to think about. And the only way to do that is keep you afraid, right?
Yeah, and it's not the first time gas prices go up. It's actually a natural thing. Every time they want
This could be
to, yeah, I don't know if you guys ever noticed, at least I don't know if in Europe this happens, but in North America, definitely. Every 5 years, let's say the normal price of gas in Canada was, let's just say $1.20 a liter. And it hovers, it goes a little lower, it goes a little higher, and then it hovers around, say, at $1.20. Well, instantly, whatever happens, it shoots up for whatever reason to $1.60 artificially for like 3, 4, 5 months. And everyone's, oh my God, it's so expensive, price of gas, whatever. Then it comes down to $1.30. And now we're saying, oh, Christ, it's so cheap. Meanwhile, for the past 2, 3 years, it was $1.20. We got used to $1.20.
Yeah.
Then they artificially raise it.
You can argue politics on that one because it's,
it's actually world because it's OPEC. It's like
and in Europe, it's much more expensive actually than right, isn't it? What is in Austria there, Karen?
So in Austria, we pay for the gasoline about €2. It's about $2 US dollars.
Yeah.
For 1 liter.
Wow.
Yeah. For us, it's about 160.
Yeah, it's almost $9 Canadian dollars for 1 gallon.
Yeah.
Crazy, I know.
It's extremely, and I think they want to make they bring the fear to the people, whoever, the media especially, that they have fear about their existence. That's all about the existence, because the people have fear. How can I pay my life? How can I pay the food and shelter and heating and water and food, everything? Yeah, it's all about the existence. Mm-hmm. But I think it's important.
Fear of poverty, right?
Yeah, that's the fear of poverty. Yeah. And I think the most important thing is what the people have to know is that they trust in the process, that they know there is a higher power out there where you can absolutely go through life with joy and fun and live in abundance, that all the needs are met. Yeah.
And it goes back to towing the line, right? Because we're afraid because we think this is I make 50,000 a year. I'm never going to make more. How can I make 50,000 stretch to? Okay, but you can make more. It's not. If you believe you can make more, you can make more. There's lots of ways to make money, and it's not just keeping the same job. You can invest. You can buy rental houses or investment properties or invest in business.
Maybe you do something completely different. That's also possible. So many people say, okay, this is my job, and in this job I can make this money, and that's my life. Right. No, it is not. No. Because what's the matter if you find another job, if you see another opportunity?
Yeah, in fact, that's the big thing right now. Probably this, I don't know if it's like that in Europe, but if you want a really big increase, you go to another company. You'll keep getting your 3 to 5% increases or zero many years, right? And just inch your way up every year. You go to another company, suddenly you have a 10 or 20% increase in pay, just because it's a different kind of company or whatever, right?
That's the same here in Austria. Yeah.
But anyway, everything is your belief. And fear of poverty. Anyone with that is had their first child or I'm sure it's the same with women, but I can only speak from the guy side. I was fine when I was on my own, even when I got married. Okay, it's a bit more pressure. You're both working, but now it's a combined income. Okay, if you lose your job, okay, you can still survive. Big deal. As soon as you have a child, you're like, oh my God, if I lose my job, now I've got this little baby that's going to be stuck, homeless on the road. It's like a fear of poverty. It just kicks right in when you have kids. I don't know. Initially, you get used to it pretty quick, but that initial fear, I don't know.
So I thought I'd just go over what Napoleon Hill said here, the symptoms of fear of poverty, and then we can get into your topic on criticism there, Walter. So anyway, symptoms of fear of poverty: indifference, commonly expressed through the lack of ambition, willingness to tolerate poverty, acceptance of whatever compensation life may offer without protest, mental and physical laziness, lack of initiative, imagination, enthusiasm, and self-control, indecision, the habit of permitting others to do one's thinking, staying on the fence. Again, even we just mentioned, media, like that's the habit of doing someone else's thinking, right? So the next part was doubt, generally expressed through alibis and excuses designed to cover up, explain away, or apologize one's failures, sometimes expressed in the form of envy of those who are successful or by criticizing them. You see all that all the time. I remember when I was in the real estate industry that I'd go in the real estate office and you'd see the top producers, they're running around dropping off paperwork and then they're gone. And then you see the other people, they're sitting there all the time with their feet up on the desk drinking coffee, and all they do is criticize all the people that are putting all the deals on the board.
Yeah, that's true.
That's what they would do. And it was annoying. And then they want to, if they see you in the office, they want to come and have a conversation about talking about someone else. I'm thinking, like, why don't you just go sell some real estate?
Yeah, that's true.
Next one is worry, usually expressed by finding fault with others. Yeah. A tendency to spend beyond one's income. Yeah. A neglect of personal appearance, scowling and frowning. Intemperance in the use of alcoholic drink, sometimes through the use of narcotics, nervousness, lack of poise, self-consciousness, and lack of self-esteem or self-reliance, sorry. Then the next part is overcaution, the habit of looking for the negative side of every circumstance, thinking and talking of possible failure instead of concentrating upon the means of succeeding. I think I know most of those people. They seem to always want to have a conversation, which I don't. Now, this is a big one here, is procrastination. So the habit of putting off until tomorrow that which should have been done last year, spending enough time in creating alibis and excuses to have done the job. The symptom is closely related to overcaution, doubt, and worry, refusal to accept responsibility when it can be avoided, willingness to compromise rather than put up a stiff fight, compromising with difficulties instead of harnessing and using them as stepping stones to advancement, bargaining with life for a penny instead of demanding prosperity, opulence, riches, contentment, and happiness, planning what to do if and when overtaken by failure instead of burning all bridges and making retreat impossible. Weakness of the and often total lack of self-confidence, definiteness of purpose, self-control, initiative, enthusiasm, ambition, thrift, and sound reasoning ability, expecting poverty instead of demanding riches, associated with those who accept poverty instead of seeking the company of those who demand and receive riches. And I also highlighted all this part here where it says money talks. It says someone will ask, why did you write a book about money? Why measure riches in dollars alone? Some will believe, and rightly so, that there are other forms of riches more desirable than money. Yes, there are riches which cannot be measured in terms of dollars, but there are millions of people who will say, give me all the money I need, and I will find everything else I want. The major reason why I wrote this book on how to get money is the fact that the world has but lately passed through an experience that left millions of men and women paralyzed with the fear of poverty. What this sort of fear does to one was well described by Westbrook. Anyways, it doesn't matter in an article. But anyways, again, he's talking about the Great Depression, right? 1929. So any more thoughts on that before we get into the fear of criticism?
No, fear of poverty is just a fear of not surviving. I think that's basically it. Right?
And I think that unfortunately, there's a big part of the world that lives in that way, like every day. Especially we were just talking about inflation. If you're on a fixed income, it's getting harder. I just noticed the interest rates. They keep raising interest rates in Canada. Bank of Canada just rose another 0.5 point. It's getting to the point where if somebody has to renew their mortgage, they may not be able to afford it.
Yeah.
Or if they were planning on buying a house, they may not be able to buy a house now.
Yeah.
But that's going to cause a fear of poverty, right?
I mean, you guys are talking about different laws. The law of rhythm, when you're talking about economics, every 10 years there's an upward trend, a downward trend. And again, our ego thinks when things are, going well, it'll go well forever. Oh, this will never end. This is just fantastic. But I mean, just understanding what inflation is, most people don't even know. You got a big pile of stuff and it's worth $100. If you grab all the stuff in Canada and put it in a big pile, it has some worth, let's say $100. Well, if suddenly, somebody says, okay, I'm going to influx another $10 into the system. It's not like you've created, like say the banks do a loan. When they loan, money, they don't have to back it up with stuff for that money. A portion of it, but the vast majority, they don't need to back it up. Like if I was to lend Lee money, I have to have $100 to lend Lee money. A bank needs $1 to lend Lee $100, right? And it's even less than that, to be honest. But that's suddenly created.
$100, by the way.
It's on paper. I'll keep an eye on you.
Like last week, and I can't put gas in it.
But that big pile of money, right? Because the bank just gave Lee an extra $10. That it's not like extra stuff was created. It's the same amount of stuff that used to be $100 is now $110. So what used to be $1 is now, $110 is worth what used to be $1, and that's all it is. And with this gigantic explosion, at least in Canada, where housing was insane, like the same house that would normally go for say 700,000 was going for 1.2 million, at least $1 million. It's not like the house was suddenly gained all that value. Really, it should be going at that 700, 750. But it was being evaluated at 1.2. That's inflation. You're giving the value of 1.2 to something that should be 750. That's inflation. So every time it goes crazy, the economy goes nuts. Inflation goes crazy and then gets out of control. The only way to stop that, at least with the banks, or the Bank of Canada or the Bank of the country banks, is to increase interest. The only way they can do it anyway.
That whole idea with the houses there's some good opportunities coming up because those houses are going to go back to probably 850, 900. You buy them, and when it comes back, they'll be 1.2 million, and you just made a lot of money.
Exactly right.
You can't have a fear of poverty.
Yep.
Think like that. You have to be focused, like Napoleon Hill's time, be focused on creating riches. And this is an opportunity for people, if they're thinking, to take what's going on in the world, and they can benefit from it greatly. Like again, you got people that will literally become multi-millionaires in the next few years because they are looking at opportunities rather than looking at the problem. But your average person, that person that drives to work every day and spends 8 hours doing the same thing every day, 5 days a week, they can't see it.
No.
And then they're gonna constantly be worrying about this things. So the fear of criticism.
I think that's a big point. Focus. It's always a matter. What do you focus on? Lack or abundance, poverty or abundance, the riches. And this one sentence is so great in this chapter. Give me all the money I need, and I will find everything else I want. Mm-hmm. So the people, I think they have to understand that if you know what you want to have, the money's going to show up. Don't give me the money and I will be happy. So law of attraction and to get rich is be happy, and then you're gonna be rich.
Right. And necessity is the seed of invention, right? Until you need something, you're not gonna fight for something. It's not a bad thing to have some need. Most things that have been created is out of a need of something. So when you need more money, you'll find it. Somebody says, if you want a new wardrobe, throw out all the clothes in your closet. Within a few days, you'll have clothes.
Trust me, $100 for. I need new shoes, but Walter, send me that $100 you said you were going to loan me, please.
I told you, it's on paper.
So the fear of criticism. Let me skip to a piece here. And you have to realize I have highlights and notes all over this thing. Right? This author, being neither a humorist, or a prophet, is that right? Nor a prophet, is inclined to attribute the basic fear of criticism to the part of man's inherited nature, which prompts him not only to take away his fellow man's goods and wares, but to justify his actions by criticism of his fellow man's character. It is well known fact that a thief will criticize the man from whom he steals, that politicians seek office not by displaying their own virtues and qualifications, by attempting to besmirch their opponent. Wow. All you do is turn the news on right now and you're going to see that. Like, it's holy smokes. It's amazing the stuff they say about each other. I'm thinking, like, how come you can't sue them for slander? But I guess I don't know. It's politics, right? Yeah. Anyways, the fear of criticism takes on many forms, the majority of which are petty and trivial. Now he has, where is it here? Here's the symptoms of the fear of criticism. The fear is almost as universal as the fear of poverty, and its effects are just as fatal to a personal achievement, mainly because their fear destroys initiative and discourages the use of imagination. Now, the major symptoms of the fear are self-consciousness, generally expressed through nervousness, timidity in conversation, and in meeting strangers, awkward movement of the hands and limbs, and shifting of the eyes. Then he goes to lack of poise, expressed through lack of voice control, nervousness in the presence of others, poor posture of their body, poor memory. Then we have personality, lacking in firmness of decision, personal charm, and ability to express opinions definitely, the habit of sidestepping issues instead of meeting them squarely, agreeing with others without careful examination of their opinions. Then we have inferiority complex, the habit of expressing self-approval by word of mouth and by actions as a means of covering up a feeling of inferiority, using big words to impress others. I think Karen does that all the time. She says words that I don't even know. They're actually they're English words, and she's Austrian, yet I don't even understand them. So
that's just because she's smart, though. That's not, you know.
I don't want to bring up some fear inside of me.
I'm getting fearful all of a sudden. She's going to say a big word and make me feel. What else we got here? Imitating others in dress, manners, boasting of imaginary achievements. This sometimes gives a surface appearance of feeling of superiority. Yeah, I know lots of people like that. Extravagance, the habit of trying to keep up with the Joneses, spending beyond one's income. That happens a lot too, right? Okay, the lack of initiative is a big part of the symptoms of fear of criticism. Failure to embrace opportunities for self-advancement, fear to express opinions, lack of confidence in one's own ideas, giving evasive answers to questions asked by superiors, the hesitancy of manner and speech, deceit in both words and deeds. And then the last one here is a lack of ambition, mental and physical laziness, lack of self-assertion, slowness in reaching decisions, easily influenced by others, the habit of criticizing others behind their back and flattering them to their face, the habit of accepting defeat without protest, quitting an undertaking when opposed by others, suspicious of other people without cause, taking in tactfulness, manner and speech, unwillingness to accept the blame of mistakes. So that would be the symptoms of the fear of criticism. Thoughts?
No, I can say. I think criticism just kind of feeds.
This is your part here, buddy. So.
Yeah, I was waiting so long to jump in. I think criticism is just a sort of a spin-off of failure, just lack of fear of failure, right? Fear of criticism just means you're afraid that you're going to fail and be criticized for it, I think. Or that's just maybe that's just another way to say it. But, you know, it all boils down to your paradigm. Your paradigm, and let's say, more importantly, your habits. Your habits are everything. Your habits drive your beliefs. They really do, whether you're conscious of it or not. It's just, you know, when we're younger, our paradigm is programmed subconsciously by whatever we see, whatever we saw with our parents, our friends, our people that we hang out with the most, through regular, habitual experience, right? When it's a constant negative thing, it gets ingrained in your subconscious. And whether we like to believe it or not, we always say nobody's perfect. That's not true. Our ego thinks it's perfect. We think we're perfect, and we judge everybody based on our own paradigm. Every time we think something's right or wrong, it's us subconsciously going, yeah, if I'm in that circumstance, I would do it the same. Oh, they're right. Oh, I would do it differently. They're wrong. And it's as simple as that. It is really that simple. And it's the ego's job to keep you safe, keep you doing what you know. So you criticize somebody because you're judging them. If you see some, millionaire and you go, oh, they're hoity-toity, they're evil. They have a lot of money. What are they going to do with all that money? They probably, take people for a ride and whatever stupid excuse, internal monologue your ego comes up with to justify where you're at. And that's all it is. All of these are all based on us judging based on our own paradigm. So it's so important to reprogram that paradigm, because if it's automatic, then it's our worst enemy, because it's all based on fear, on survival. But when you get in the habit of focusing on where you're going, staying positive, focused on your goals, consciously acting, achieving on a regular basis, well, now you programmed yourself to be who you choose to be, and now your ego is your friend, because it matches where you want to be, where you choose to be. You don't have to fear it anymore, because you get used to thinking positive, and those are the things that pop up, as a first thought, as a first reaction over time.
Yeah, fear criticism, Karen.
Yeah, if you say, Walter, if we criticism other people, what they do, what they think, and what they make, that's. I think that the reason is, how often do we criticize ourselves?
Yeah,
good point.
Yeah. We criticize ourselves, and I think that's the point where the paradigm comes in again. It's so important, because and the old beliefs and the old false beliefs come in and have a big role, because we criticize ourselves because we think we are not good enough. We are not smart enough, and not good enough, and not thin enough, and not rich enough. And that, I think that's a big factor why we criticize ourselves. And if we criticize ourselves, we criticize other people. Because if we see other people, they are successful and they have all the things we want to create and have in our lives, and we don't have all these things, then we criticize them because something's wrong with them. Hey, man, how are they doing that? Oh, that's not legal.
Yeah.
I think many people think that way, and I think the best way is just take a look at yourself and think about it. Why do you feel that way? Yeah. What do you think? Live consciously.
Yeah. I was just talking, working with somebody recently, very recently, super smart guy. And he was, but it's funny, I was working with him on a various projects, and everything's a learning process. Asked him to do something. He hadn't done it before, which is fine. If you don't know how to do it, fine. Okay, we can do it like this, like that. But the second he thought that he couldn't do it, he froze. Like all those things that Napoleon Hill is talking about. He, can't remember things. You could physically see him shut down with this fear of not knowing or whatever. And when we started talking about it, it boiled down. He actually came up to this, it boiled down to his father, who knows where his father learned it from. He said, hey, you're destined to do sports. You're not destined to be some smart business guy. You're not smart enough. He actually told him that. So guess what got ingrained in this guy's subconscious, right? It's amazing how, and I'm sure his father wasn't consciously thinking, oh, I'm going to shape this kid's way of thinking, right? But we do. Those negative, positive statements have a huge impact. Negative statements have a huge impact, especially to your kids, right? You don't even notice what we're doing. But he started to live consciously, and he realized that's what it was. So going forward, he said, oh my God, that's just me reliving my dad yelling, telling me I was not smart enough, right?
Yeah.
And so that's what changed. From that point forward, everything changed. Because when he felt that feeling, it's just me remembering how I felt. That's all it was, right? And then he
Getting
changed.
outside his comfort zone is going to cause fear.
Yeah.
So it boils down to. So we're going to be wrapping up here. So I just want to
Yeah.
go over what's the other fears. I'm not going to get into all of them. I'll just point them out. The very first two are actually probably the most important ones, the poverty and criticism part. But they're all really important. So you want to definitely get into this book and study it. And one thing about this too is don't just read it once. I think you're going to find that you may either need to find a mentor or somebody to read it with, to go through it with, or I think realistically, you probably need to read it 2 or 3 times before you're really going to start to get it. But again, I highly recommend to read the whole thing. So again, as we finish up our last chapter here, I'll just go over briefly. I'm not going to read all of them, but just point out the other fears. One's fear of ill health, which we talked about in the beginning. It's interesting too with the symptoms of the fear of ill health is one's autosuggestion, the habit of negative use of self-suggestion by looking for and expecting to find the symptoms of all kinds of diseases. I've known people in my life that, they're always looking for the next reason to be sick and go see their doctor about something. Hypochondria is obviously a big one. Lack of exercise, the fear of ill health often interferes with proper physical exercise. That's my excuse. That's what it is. Right? And then should get Karin to say this word. It's too big for me. Susceptibility. There we go. Fear of ill health breaks down nature's body resistance. Absolutely. You get sick. It's got something to do with your mind going on subconsciously. It's causing you to shut down. And it's real. It's not like a figment of someone's imagination. I don't want anybody to get the idea that if you get sick, it's in your mind. Well, it is in your mind, but it's not in your imagination. It's real. It's physical. It's real. But after you get well, maybe start thinking about what was I thinking about prior to getting sick. Right? Those are things important. Self-coddling is another one, and intemperance, the habit of using alcohol or narcotics to destroy pain such as headaches, neuralgia, etc., instead of eliminating the cause. Okay. We have what do we got here? Loss of love. That's the symptoms for that are jealousy, fault finding, habit of finding fault with friends, relatives, business associates, and loved ones upon the slightest provocation or without any cause whatsoever. I can look back at many conversations with people that they're looking for something. Like it's again, it all goes back to your own view of yourself. And then gambling is another thing that people do. Loss of love. And then we have the fear of old age, and then we have the fear of death, which is a big one. And I'm not going to bother with all those things. I'm just going to try to move to the end here because we're going to wrap up shortly. What have I got here? This part here would be something good to read. This one, I thought this part was good to finish this up with. It says how to protect yourself against negative influences. And I better put these on or I won't be able to read it. Oh, look at that. Let there be sight. To protect yourself against negative influences, whether of your own making or the result of the activities of negative people around you, recognize that you have a willpower and put it into constant use until it builds a wall of immunity against negative influences in your own mind. I think I've been able to do that. Like as soon as somebody starts talking negative, I shut down. Like I just stop listening. Like it's, I can't hear it anymore. It's like the news. I don't watch it because every time I turn it on, it's like I just want to hear what the news of the day is. I don't want an opinion. And it gets negative, right?
Yeah.
Recognize the fact that you and every other human being are by nature lazy, indifferent, and susceptible to all suggestions which harmonize with your weaknesses. Again, I just mentioned the media. That's exactly what they're doing. They're deliberately focusing on your weaknesses. Now, recognize that you are by nature susceptible to all the 6 basic fears and set up habits for the purpose of counteracting all these fears. Recognize that negative influence often work on you through your subconscious mind. Therefore, they are difficult to detect and keep your mind closed against all people who depress or discourage you in any way. Clean out your medicine chest. Throw away all pill bottles and stop pandering to colds, aches, pains, and imaginary illnesses. Deliberately seek the company of people who influence you to think and act for yourself. Do not expect troubles, as they have a tendency not to disappoint. Without a doubt, the most common weakness of all human beings is the habit of leaving their minds open to the negative influences of other people. This weakness is all the more damaging because most people do not recognize that they are cursed by it. And many who acknowledge it neglect or refuse to correct the evil until it becomes an uncontrollable part of their daily habits. To aid those who wish to see themselves as they really are, the following list, well, I'm not going to go into this, but there's a whole whack of self-analysis test questions and things like that here, which again, highly recommend you getting a copy of this and studying it. And, I imagine that you could reach out to any one of us here and we could probably very easily get you a copy if you want it. So as we're wrapping up here, again, I want to thank everyone who has been with us it's been like 14 weeks, right?
Yeah.
A long time. So,
14 weeks. Yeah.
and we still like each other. How'd that happen?
Yeah, how nice.
So yeah, it's again, any final thoughts as we close up here?
No, I think that the bottom line is everyone has unlimited potential. And I think the first step is understanding how your mind works. This book, is almost the base for every other self-help. If they haven't read it, they take, you can take pieces out of, every one of anyone who's in the self-help takes pieces from or the ideas out of this book. It's understanding your mind and understanding that you are not those reactions. You are not your past. You are not those fears. And that changes everything. That book, once you get through it and read it a few times, like Lee said, you read it several times, and actually read it several times throughout your life. Because when I read it at first, when I was in my 20s, I don't know if I got 20% of what is in it. And then I read it again when I'm 40s, whole different meaning for me. Yeah.
You're in your 40s? Wow.
No, I was in my 40s, never mind.
All right, you got final thoughts? Anything you want to say?
Yeah. So me too. The first time I read the Think and Grow Rich, I knew a lot of things, but I didn't understand it the way I do it today.
Yeah.
And I think it's wonderful when people acknowledge that they are not a victim to anything and anybody, not from the economy, not from the people around them and friends and family. Everyone has the possibility to think by its own. And everyone has the possibility to live really a life full of abundance and joy, and fear is not necessary. Fear is just an illusion.
Mm-hmm.
So trust in the process and trust your own power, and you get what you think about, and what you think about you bring about.
Absolutely right. So let's bring about prosperity for everyone. If anybody again wants to reach out, everybody here actually offers coaching. If you want mentoring, you want to go through this particular program with somebody one-on-one, reach out to one of us. We'd be happy to work with you on that. Again, I want to thank everybody for coming. And as just kind of we wrap this up, I got some quotes here from people that talked about this particular book. So the first one here is from Les Brown. I guess I need my glasses back. Sorry. I think you're gonna know all these people. So. It's been a major book in my growth and development. It will begin to introduce to you a part of yourself that you don't know right now. And again, that's from Les Brown. Some people may know who this is. I think if you're Canadian, you probably know who he is. Robert Herjavec. You've probably seen him on the Shark Tank. Also, Dragon's Den in Canada. Very, very successful man. Anyways, he says, if I had to recommend one book, it would have to be Napoleon Hill, Think and Grow Rich. It's epic. Tony Robbins said Napoleon Hill's quest has been an inspiration to me. Brian Tracy said, this is the best single book on personal success ever written. It made me a millionaire starting from nothing. Barbara Corcoran, also Shark Tank, right? Mm-hmm. if not for the Henry Ford story and Think and Grow Rich, I don't think I would have seen the light that you could always hire the attributes of the next guy that you don't have yourself to build. Okay, this doesn't make sense. I get the idea though.
If you don't have the skill, you can always hire somebody.
Hire somebody, right? Yeah, there's something wrong with the writing here. It's not my eyes. And then, of course, we're going to end it here with Bob Proctor. Instead of working really hard, read and reread Think and Grow Rich. Study it line by line, paragraph by paragraph, so you can figure out what Napoleon Hill was really saying, and then act on it. Do that, and I guarantee you will earn the amount of money you desire. And I agree. I think that the answers to pretty much everything you can think of in regards to building riches, at least, is in this book. And again, I highly recommend you read it and follow us. You can go to myelevatenetwork.com and you'll find it. The replays are there. I think you might find the replays on Facebook as well. There's an entire program where you can get all 14 of our sessions and study along with us if you want to. So any final thoughts as we say goodbye to those who've been following us?
No, not just these sessions, but every one of us have courses on My Elevate, and they're all, I mean, I think mine's good, but I mean, Lee's and Karen's, just really, really great courses. Amazing.
Yeah, there's a lot of great stuff there.
Yeah.
You got a new one coming too? You were talking about something new. I think you were talking about.
Yeah, I'm working through. I have the one there that's Thought 2.0 that actually speaks a lot to what we were talking about now, just how your mind works and how to think. But it's actually chapter 2 of my book, and I'm doing the overall one that's much bigger. It's called Purpose 2.0. That covers the whole thing. So I'm working through it, maybe about 50%.
Sorry, I was looking at this book here, and you say Purpose 2.0?
Purpose 2.0. Yeah.
Okay. Good name. Excellent. Good. Yeah. And Karen and I did a great program. In fact, what's great too with what Karen did is you can also see it in or listen to it in German and read it in German if you want, which
yes,
good. And then of course we did a whole series on that. So there's videos that go with that. If somebody wants to follow that, that'd be great as well. So again, thanks for following us. It was great being here. Thanks to you guys. This has been great. 14 weeks. And I will see you again next time, I guess, right? Any further thoughts as I'm about to ready to say goodbye to everyone?
Thank you.
Thanks to you both. Yeah, it was a lot of fun. Ton of fun.
Thank you, Walter. It was great. It was a great time.
It was. Thanks, everyone.
Take care.